how to secure funds for a profitable build-to-let investment. Shocking insider secrets revealed. Now, if you've ever been interested in a build-to-let strategy, hey, we're going to talk about it this week, so keep watching. Hi, Kevin Wright here, back again with another property finance video, and this week we're talking about build to rent. Now, I want to drill down a bit on it and look at it from a view that someone put a question to me a few weeks ago. And you know, again, people ask me a lot of questions about property finance. Why is that? Well, because I've been broke in it for 20 plus years. So let's look at the question and then let's have a look at how I answered it. So this couple said that they've got a property with quite a big garden and they've got planning permission to not only put an extension on the side as like an annex, but to actually build a brand new property in their garden. And it would be brilliant if they could do both at the same time. The question is funding it. Now, their plan was for it to be a build to let. Now, their frustration was they've been looking for a mortgage lender that was going to fund the whole thing, the new dwelling as well. And so far they had been able to find one. All they've been able to find was a lender that would fund the extension, the annex. Now, they'd heard about self-build mortgages where you build your own main residence to live in and wondered if that could work, or indeed if there was another solution that they weren't yet aware of. Okay, so now let's unpick this to see how we could actually achieve this. And if you're watching in my Monday morning live Q&As, or even some of these videos, you know I'm a pretty shoot from the hip kind of guy, really, aren't I? Now, my first thought here is this requires a radical rethink of how to structure the finance on it, because the way they're looking at it now is never going to work. Let's start with a new build next door. The plan is to let it out. Self-build mortgages are an absolute non-starter. Why is that? Because they are for main residence occupation only, and strictly so. Now, there's a bunch of mortgage lenders, probably not more than a handful, that are operating in this self-build mortgage space, and it's for people that want to build their own home. Usually you would phrase it as their dream home. Now, whether they're doing all the build work themselves or most of the build work themselves, or setting themselves up as a main contractor, putting trades in, or even just handing it over to a main contractor. The fundamental point of a self-build mortgage is you are going to live in the end product. So clearly here, the build to rent aspect means that self-build mortgages are an absolute non-starter. So we have to rule that out straight away. Last point actually on self-build mortgages. These lenders are very aware, because they're at main residence borrowing rates, that it's the cheapest money around. Now, they're very vigilant, and like a Rottweiler you might say, on sussing out anyone that they suspect, not prove, suspect, is doing this for profit. And they have the ability to cut off the funding at any time in the build. Now, the last thing you want to do is try and pull the wool over their eyes and end up with a half-finished project that no other lender wants to jump in and finish off and give you the funding. So forget about self-build mortgages. Also forget about ordinary mortgages, because no mortgage lender, whilst they'd be happy to fund an extension or an annex to an existing building, is ever going to fund a new build property in the grounds of the existing property. So that's a non-starter too. And to complicate it still further, your current mortgage lender, whilst they may well grant you the funds to build that extension or annex, not only will they not fund the new build, they won't give you permission to build the new build whilst they still have a charge over the property. Now, even if you had the cash to fund it yourself, they would still never give you permission to build the thing, and they would view it as a serious breach of their mortgage terms and conditions. Now, we've looked at all the ways it won't work, so let's now look at the way it would work. And for new build properties, there is one specialist type of finance that's set up specifically to fund them, and that is development finance. Development finance lenders are only ready to lend when you're ready to build. So you can't line this up, many months in advance. They want you to be putting a spade in the ground pretty much as soon as they grind you the luck. Now, I've identified 5 key steps to making this type of deal work. And here they are. Step 1, apply for planning permission for the new build. Now, there's minimal cost to that other than the cost of making the application. And just applying for permission is not breaching any of your current mortgage lender's terms and conditions. Step 2, apply to your current mortgage lender for permission to split the title. In other words, to hive off the build plot and put that on a separate title that should be preferably unencumbered. Now, to do this, your current mortgage lender is going to instruct a valuation, which of course you have to pay for, and they're going to come around and value the property without the building plot. Now, you might find it helpful at this point, before the valuer comes round, to actually erect a fence, separating what's going to be the smaller main residence and the build plot for the new build. And that just makes it easier for the valuer to value the main residence without the garden plot. And what your mortgage lender will be looking for is, does the reduced value of the smaller plot, does the reduced value of the smaller main residence breach any loan to value guidelines of your mortgage product? In other words, if you've got a 60% loan to value product, does the reduction in value push your borrowing over 60%? If not, well, pretty much plain sailing. But if it does, they would give their permission, but it's conditional on you making a lump sum payment to bring the mortgage down to the loan to value that the product determines. In other words, if you're at 65%, once the reduction in value is taken into account, you'd need to put in a 5% lump sum cash payment to bring it down to the 60% loan to value. So it's either a yes, away you go, we've got no objection, or yes, you can do it, but you need to pay us some cash before we give you permission. Step 3 is a quickie. Choose a builder that's going to build it for you. Now, unless you feel like acting as main contractor yourself. Now, step 4 is to actually apply for the development finance. Now there are specific lenders, they're not household names, and partly the reason for that is they don't want to be household names. They want to be, a bit cloak and dagger, not because they've got anything to hide, but they just don't want to be troubled with the general public generally. And a lot of these lenders only deal through brokers. Now, these lenders will fund 100% of the build cost. That's not them being overly generous, it's being pragmatic. Because if they fund 100% of the build cost, you're going to end up with a finished building that you can either sell or put on a mortgage and rent out. So it's pretty much self-preservation, if you want to look at it that way. Now, if that title split has produced an unencumbered building plot, it puts you in a very strong position, because now with planning permission, what was a bit of garden and worth probably a few £1,000s is now a building plot worth tens of £1,000s at the absolute least, and possibly into 6 figures depending on whereabouts in the country actually happens to be. So just wanting to borrow the money to build a property should not exceed 40% of the gross development value of the finished build. Now, therefore, that's low risk lending, certainly from the view of the development finance lender themselves. Step 5, now, once the build is complete, you can then move to a buy-to-let mortgage if you're going to rent it out on a simple AST, or the appropriate mortgage for any other type of rental income derived. Now, over the years, as brokers, we've brokered a number of different projects like this. So if there's something you're interested in doing for yourself, hey, jump on the home page here, click the tab, and you'll see my contact details, and we can get this ball rolling for you. Now, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be back again next week with another property finance video. Okay, see you then. If you enjoyed watching this video, did you know every Monday morning at 8:30 I do a live Facebook Q&A. So if you want to start the week with checking out some answers to your property finance questions, click the link here.